Thanks all for everybody getting up on Sunday morning and coming to be with us. I know on the last day of a conference, it's always pretty easy to escape and you go home and see your family and start your practice again. So we're greatly appreciated for you guys and the people that are online, especially if you're on the West Coast, for coming to play a little bit today. So I'm going to share a little bit about some of the tidbits I've acquired in almost 37 years as a chef at Walt Disney World. I did just retire a couple months ago, so I'm going to try and remember what I did a couple months ago along the way. But really, thanks to Chef Carl Gugelmus for throwing my name out there to participate today, and for Dr. Harlan for actually making the invitation to come and talk to you today. So it was truly an honor, and I learned a lot yesterday in watching you and listening to some of the speakers as well. And hopefully you'll see references today, because the things that I think we do at Walt Disney World do tie back to a lot of what you do in your practices. So I'm going to talk about, health, wellness, and then what overlays everything is the environment. And you hear a lot about that today, but when you think about food systems, it does impact all of us in multiple ways. And I'll try and share some of that as we go along as well. So I guess I have the clicker here. As a male, I should know how to work this. Like this. And boom. So the scope of Walt Disney World. Has everybody been to Walt Disney World? For the most part, I know somebody had not been to Disneyland anyways, but just some of the projects I've worked on over the last few years. Concept development, so you think about everything from Be Our Guest, the big restaurant in the Magic Kingdom, first place to serve alcohol in the Magic Kingdom. I was part of the design team for that, and then every project since then through Riviera and the Grand Destino Tower at Coronado Springs, all of the restaurants within that as part of that design team. Mickey Check and Disney Check, our healthy food program. Plant-based initiatives, food allergies and tolerances have always been part of the program, all the way back to when I started in 1986. And then again, the environmental goals. Everybody's rolling out CSR goals, and certainly the Disney company has that as well. So it is kind of the overlay for everything that I'm going to talk today. And somebody said yesterday, don't lose the lead story. And I do all this other stuff, it ties in with medicine, but the environment, I think, affects that probably more than anything at the end of the day. So. How big is Walt Disney World? People forget how big it really is. When I started in '86, there were 4 resorts, 2 theme parks, and a shopping village. In the shopping village, you could run through it and probably not see another person on some days, including the weekends. But Walt Disney World is twice the size of the island of Manhattan, about 40 square miles. So if you ever walk from the north side of Central Park all the way down to the park, on the other side, it's a bit of a hike. If you've gotten lost on some of the 175 miles of roadway, I understand that too, or the waterways. But any given day, you have 250,000 of your closest friends out there wandering around, including cast members. They occupy 30 resorts, 29,000 hotel rooms, 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, a shopping complex, a sports complex, and then there's always those golfers that are out there as well. So years ago, you used to just have to come and see the theme park. Now you can come and just sit by the pool, you can golf, you can have the vacation of your choice. And they have 584 different dining destinations to choose from, carts, kiosks, to very fine dining at Victoria and Albert. So again, you can come and enjoy some of the 34,000 active recipes that are out there. Yes, that's a real number. It's pretty frightening sometimes to the ops people. You could take 400 buses and all the emissions that they have, and we're trying to correct one of our environmental goals, or the people that drive their cars, as well as monorails, trains, ferries. And for convention groups, 700,000 square feet. That was a business we got back to in the early 90s at the Grand Floridian, but recognized that was a very important part of our business. And of course, the 300 merchandise stores with thousands of items that we'd like you to take home to your family and friends. So yes, I still want you to do that. So we talk about magic and inspiration. And when I talk about magic, I think about it in Disney terms. But today I want you to think about it in terms of what you do. You're here talking about culinary medicine, and it has a very direct effect on people's lives, which to a sense provides a bit of magic to each of them, both before they enter the healthcare system and certainly while they're in the healthcare system. And they will remember that afterwards. When we think about food, people remember those experiences in the context in which they hopefully enjoyed it, because I know you were all well past the lime jello of my father's generation a long time ago. At least I hope we all are. I suppose one of these days I'll find that out myself. But when it comes to inspiration, I mean, I'm inspired and energized by the food that I serve, but also by the people that I encounter. And part of Disney is really, it's about the people. It's about the people that you work with, and it's about the guests that we serve. You also serve guests as well, some voluntary, perhaps some involuntary, but they're still out there and your guests and deserve the same experience. So whether it's a kid with food allergies, I would tell my cast members, if you're ever in a bad mood, go out in the dining room and talk to a little girl in a Cinderella dress who can't eat some of your food products. if that's not magic, I don't know what is. And that will put you in a good mood. So whether it was that or the plant-based diets and taking care of a marathoner who's here for a Disney Marathon weekend who's vegan, or just, the regular menu items, that we serve on a daily basis. There's magic and inspiration within all of that stuff. So even on your worst day, I always said, food is always a good metaphor for everything that we do. It certainly will put you in a good mood. So from the health perspective, we'll talk about Kids Mickey Check, a way of finding healthy food items throughout the Disney ecosystem, and our plant-based initiatives as well. So we started rolling out healthy meals in 2006, and there were 4 curated meals for everything on property at that point in time. I won't tell you I was necessarily proud of all of those things, but by 2013, we came around with the Disney, or what was called the Mickey Check, is now transitioned to the Disney Check program, and we rolled it out across all theme parks and resorts as complete meals. But you can still find this in grocery stores, right? Because we have a lot of licensed products out there, consumer products. On all of our digital platforms, you'll see it out there. And everything is designed to meet these guidelines. When you go into the parks and resorts, 50% of the kids' meals now are going to be Mickey Check items. And they're all denoted with that Disney check there at the top. And that is there partly to make it a little bit easier for moms in the middle of August trying to get their kid to eat a healthy item. At least you have a negotiating point to start with. So I can have the burger the next 3 days, but tonight we're going to have a Disney check item along the way. But it's got to be a 40-gram serving from 4 food categories. So lean proteins, low-fat dairy, whole grains, and fruits and vegetables. So not that dissimilar from what you see in the school systems, but we partnered with the National Restaurant Association, the Children's Food and Beverage Advertising Initiative, and other organizations to come up with these guidelines, which have been pretty similar since they first rolled out. They look a little bit different in our parks in Hong Kong and Shanghai, as well as in Paris, due to some of the cultural differences and dietary patterns that take place there. But think about creating kids' meals, and you dietitians are going to be a lot better at this than 99.9% of the chefs are. Less than 600 calories, less than 10% saturated fat, 10% added sugars, less than 10% added sugars, no trans fat, that's getting pretty easy these days, and less than 740 milligrams of sodium. How do you make products taste good in that framework? So, but it does come down a little bit to portion size, because 600 calories isn't a whole lot, but when you think it's designed for children 3 to 9 primarily, and yes, there are going to be outliers. You're going to have, the child athlete that, that goes out and runs all the time, and may need a few more and may have 2 kids' meals, but because they can, they deserve that. But we also discovered that we have all these curated meals, but kids want choice, right? Parents eat one thing and all 3 kids eat something different every single night. So we came up with a create your own menu that listed maybe like 4 center of the plate items, and then there might be like 10 sides. And then using a nutritional matrix, we were able to put together Mickey Check icons for those items that if you pick these items together, that'll make your complete meal. If you want to go off grid, fine, knock yourself out. The chocolate ice cream is still going to be there, the pizza or whatever that is. But it helped, again, provide choice for the kids, perhaps an optical illusion sometimes to them, but it definitely worked for moms and parents who drive that program. So that's been a pretty big success. But it's a lot of work, as you all know, to teach chefs about nutrition, get them to actually calculate this stuff, and then use the software programs to do that. For about 300, if we took all the quick service and table service restaurants, it's about 300 restaurants, so that's a bunch. The plant-based initiative is something that came along in 2019. We'd been working on it for a couple of years and made multiple trips to Philadelphia and New York City to find out what plant-based dining was really like. So we had to go to where there was a number of people that actually had restaurants that do this stuff, which was great. But we had some great meals, and we also had, the kale salad with Caesar dressing on it, which was blatantly horrible, and remains to this day horrible. So I encourage you to go beyond that and think about flavor and fun, innovation, creativity, and think about these things. When we think about plant-based diets of Asia, India, pre-Columbian America, where we live today, these are all primary plant-based diets at some point in time. The flavor profiles are already there. We don't need, as chefs, to reinvent this stuff. all of these things, and hopefully you saw a lot of that, yesterday in the cooking sessions. These flavors already exist. People already like them. They're going out to Thai restaurants and Spanish restaurants, Peruvian restaurants, and trying all of this stuff. But we need to bring a little bit of fun and excitement into this stuff. Even for those on limited diets, there are still ways through spices and herbs to figure out ways to do this. And I'm going to share with you some pictures that we've taken over the last few years, perhaps provide a little bit of inspiration of what is possible out there. For kids, we did this in banquets, smoking veg plate. It's not smoke, it's just a little bit of dry ice, just for sport. This was in a banquet setting, and some of those vegetables might be their favorites, and some perhaps not. Asparagus, but anyways, if you have a little tube of ranch dressing cures all ills. And you know what? It's only healthy if they eat it. So you know what? A couple carrots, a couple asparagus, a little ranch dressing, get it down their face. That's probably a pretty good thing. This dish we used in concierge at Grand Destino, and it's made its way on a couple of buffet menus as well. So saffron poached cauliflower with caramelized onions, and yes, take the time to caramelize them correctly with white raisins and olives. And that to me was like a meal in itself whenever we had to make that on the rotation day. These next two items are from Quick Service at Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort, which was reimagined a couple of years ago. Notice I used the correct nomenclature, Disney's Caribbean Beach Resort. Oh boy, 37 years, I'm telling you. But this is Quick Service. So this was on there for breakfast, kind of a twist on avocado toast, right? So it's a loaf or a slice of whole grain bread with avocados, orange supremes, pickled onions, radishes, a little bit of cilantro, and we cured tomatoes, kind of like a tomato lox, with a little bit of tamari, sesame oil, a little canola oil, and just a wee bit of liquid smoke in there. So a great twist and a great way to add a little bit of flavor to the morning. It doesn't always have to be bland just because it's breakfast. Let's have a little excitement in the morning and get this day off to a rolling start. One of the items that I like that item, but I really like this eggless salad sandwich. So this is all about the tofu scramble. So we've all had probably a lot of bad tofu scrambles. This is about loving tofu and making it taste good. So sauteing the tofu with caramelized onions and peppers and some onion and garlic powder, a little tamari, and a little bit of a nutritional yeast in there as well, and turmeric to color it yellow. So it brings out that egg flavor. The base ingredient for this item is delicious on its own, as should all ingredients. And we added some very small broccoli florets because nobody wants a big chunk of broccoli in their sandwich, at least that I've known. Diced sweet potatoes that we blanched a little bit, Granny Smith apples to add a little bit of acid to it. And then we also took the stems from the broccoli and cut and blanched those up. That's kind of the celery that's in there. So again, you're using the whole plant. It doesn't all go away. And note also too, we use iceberg lettuce. Put a little bit of crunch in there, like lose the leaf lettuce, please. It's soft. I know it's bright green or whatever, but it's soft and is not a good mouthfeel anyways, even on your burger. So just make it go away, and a nice slice of tomato. And this is a good meal. So we could probably debate the portion size of said meal, but it was a great sandwich. And this last item is a seafood platter, that was a part of Toledo restaurant at the Grand Destino Tower. So this was designed to have individual components that could be used in different plates, but then as a composed meal, it was a seafood platter. So it's a heart of palm crab cake. The scallops are king trumpet mushrooms that we cut, seared, and then basted with earth balanced butter. So I won't tell you it was low calorie. And then we used the rest of the stem and we cut it out to make calamari rings that were breaded and fried, and we used the donut hole portion as well, again trying to use the whole thing. And then whatever was left from the mushroom, we shredded, and it became part of a ceviche, so a traditional ceviche. And the item that you can't see, which was my favorite, was a traditional Moroccan couscous. We steamed it 3 times like they do in Morocco, and finished it with preserved lemons and medjool dates and some extra virgin olive oil and a little harissa vinaigrette to go with it. So it was a huge surprise to a lot of people. We served the crab cakes and scallops and had a lot of debate at a couple of food festivals about whether or not this was real seafood, and like, no, this is mushrooms and hearts of palm. So pretty nice. Definitely enjoyed that dish. But I will tell you, sometimes to make creative vegetable products, vegetables may be a little less expensive. They should not be the cheapest item on the menu. It takes a little bit of loving to make this work. And we need to explain that to our executives, and we need to explain that to the pricing people, that there's a little bit of love that's got to go into this stuff. To me, any fool can cook a steak, right? Put it on the grill for 5 or 10 minutes, you buy it already pre-cut and you're done. To do this takes a little bit of effort, if nothing else. Perhaps not a skill, but it takes some effort. Getting into wellness, food allergies, intolerances. We've had a lot of chat about this. I know you started off the first day talking about celiac and probably wheat allergies at the same time. They do kind of tend to go together a little bit. But we know it goes across all age groups and all ethnicities, one way or another, and has from the beginning of time. So my first introduction was probably 1988, 89, and somebody came and said that they had a gluten allergy. I know it's an intolerance. They didn't teach me this in school that I recall. I was young and stupid, so I don't remember it. But anyways, I'm like, okay, what do we do with this? But back then, a lot of food was prepared from scratch. I didn't have all these prepared items. So all I had to really do was eliminate the bread. Pretty simple. Today, it's far more complicated for people to do that. But that's how long Walt Disney World has been dealing with food allergies and intolerances, to the point where today, the number is well north of 500,000 people a year that we take care of that have some sort of a special dietary need. Some of these guys, you all know this, there's the top 9 now, thank goodness for adding sesame. But these are all allergies, intolerances, and food preferences that we've dealt with over the course of time. We had to develop cheat sheets for our chefs that are available to them online, they can bring up on their phone, because you may not run into a lupin allergy every Tuesday, or F pies, but at least you know what it is. We would tell them what it is, here's where you find it, here's some strategies to mitigate it and make the guests happy. So I don't have enough time to talk about the young man that came from Minnesota for 9 days, a 3-year-old little boy who had F pies and histamine allergy, and he had about 20 things that he could eat, but they left pretty happy and expanded his food palate too along the way. That's a story for another day. But thank goodness for Monash University for clarifying what FODMAPs are. My early career, people would come in, I can't have apples, or I'm allergic to apples, or onions, or garlic, or all these other things. I'm like, okay, right, you get the big eye roll from the chef. It's like, okay, I'll accommodate this stuff and make it go on. But we've learned about FODMAPs. It's just one example of things that our chefs have had to learn a little bit more about. We're not scientists, we're not nutritionists, we're not doctors, we're chefs. But we prepare great food, and if we understand some of these things, at least at a high level, we can create great tasting products for our guests and send them on their merry way, because no guest should go away not being able to eat in any restaurant. That I hold as a core belief. Plus, I've learned that it's fun to be able to say fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols. You guys probably say that all the time. I say it about twice a year, but it's entertaining to learn what that is. And my way out of that was to think about anything that goes into my stomach that's going to turn to a simple sugar and turn it really quickly is kind of like my base level of restaurant. And then I would go back to my little cheat sheet here and try and make that make sense to me. In cases where that were just really difficult, sometimes, let's face it, it's just easier. Just ask the guest, what do you want to eat? And we would go back and rework the whole menu from there. In a lot of cases, it just came back to whole natural foods and skipping the processed stuff. And what a concept, huh? That's old school. That's why I have gray hair. We also had to teach people, chefs, how to read labels, not only for food allergen standpoint, but also because we have a lot of grab and go items as well. So the food code says you got to label it this way, and DBPR here in Florida says you got to label it this way. But it's confusing, and it's also detail oriented. So this is just about soy. So the food code says, you can put it in a contain statement, which we see a lot on food labels. You can also put it in the ingredient label and put it next to the allergen where it should be, and may not be immediately recognizable. Guests may not know that it's soy and lecithin, or that whey is part of milk. So it's great to put it there. Where it becomes confusing is the last one, soybean oil. So, okay, shouldn't soy be in the contain statement? You would think so, but it's a highly refined oil, which a lot of you probably already know. So highly refined oil has been bleached. They've stripped out the proteins for the IgE-mediated allergen, and we move on. We had an experiment in the parks probably 10 years ago, where we're going to roll out a French fry product that was blanched in soy oil, highly refined soy oil. It was noontime. We didn't even make it through lunchtime at these couple of restaurants. I had calls from guests. I had calls from leaders saying, the guests are complaining that this is soy and they can't eat it. I'm like, but it's highly refined. Well, we don't know about that. They're complaining we got to have something different. We went back to the old fries before dinner time. So it is something to explain, and I guarantee you that the folks that have replaced me, they're still dealing with this, I guarantee you, a couple times a year asking about highly refined oils, and now it's coconut oil and a couple of others. So labeling is critically important, and it is worth developing a class and teaching people how to do that. The more chefs know, And they are all about learning, right? We want to learn about new food things. The more they can help you along the way, make your lives a wee bit easier. Not something that comes natural to us sometimes. We try. At Walt Disney World, it'd be great if we could do this thing on the left. Food allergy or allergy superheroes does a great job, but that's pretty scary. Maybe great in a clinical environment, like just stay away, this kid's allergic to 48 things. At Walt Disney World, we're about managing the positive and finding things that you can eat and that you want to eat and be friendly about it. And not all guests want to identify themselves to every chef across property for 5 days that they're all there. So we created allergy-friendly menus, and you can find those at disneyworld.com and short down, and we managed to the positive. So instead of identifying all the allergens in there that meant you could not have the food, we called them allergy-friendly, and it said it's friendly flour, gluten, wheat, eggs, milk, meaning that you could have those things. And the allergens are always listed in the same order, so you could scroll down. I have a gluten intolerance or wheat allergy. That's always going to be the first thing. It says friendly for, boom, I can have that. And the recipes have already been put in there. The accommodations have already been made. It shows up in the POS system in the kitchen that you're going to get a gluten-free bun, you're going to have this and that. And we're going to manage the cross-contact all the way through that food process for your safety. Because the goal is to get the letter from my little friend Chloe on the right-hand side there. We should all get those at one point or another. And it's great, but note that she says, I only can eat in restaurants at Walt Disney World. That's nuts. Great for us. But a little kid's got to come to Walt Disney World to eat safely. That is a shame, because I tell people on the outside restaurants and chefs, you know what, if you can have a food allergy family that's in your neighborhood that's come to dinner every Friday night, you really think you can turn out a family of 4 every Friday night in these days and times? I think not. And once you learn what they like, it becomes infinitely easier to do it because they're there every Friday night. And we have guests that come to us, they follow us for years. I had one chef call me over. I had grandmother, mother, and daughter, 3 generations. They're all at Port Orleans for the gluten-free beignets. And they followed the chef. They knew Raphael was there. And I guarantee they know where he is now. He's not there anymore, but he's in another location. But you want those letters. And it's worth the effort to do that accommodation. Again, the little girl getting a great meal in a Cinderella dress, magic. But you need to be perfectly clear about what you can and cannot do. We don't have separate kitchens. The kitchens at Walt Disney World are not big. The Magic Kingdom was built, 50 odd years ago. It ain't big. So you need to think about this, and we can't guarantee that. We're also reliant on manufacturers' labels, which are not always accurate, despite their best efforts. And I know they're supposed to use current good manufacturing process, CGMPs, and all this other stuff to do this, per the food code and FALCPA and the FASTER Act and all this other stuff. But they still persist on using these advisory statements, which are not regulated, may contain processed in a facility with, what the heck does that mean? You just chicken. It either had, sorry, that's my personal viewpoint. You either have it in there or you don't have it in there. Call it out. If you're using CGMPs, then it should be able to be pretty easy to avoid. If I can avoid it in my kitchen, putting out 700 to 1,000 meals a day, I'm thinking in a manufacturing facility is doing the same freaking thing all day long, should be able to figure it out pretty easily. But you need to be very upfront with them. And we would tell people, some guests we just couldn't accommodate, at least not in the framework that they wanted to, but we sure did bend over backwards. And again, back to my little friend with the FPIs and histamine allergy, or the little boy Reed from Massachusetts, who's now going to school in Boston, came and we taught him how to make his own gluten-free pancakes in the kitchen at the Grand Floridian. That was 20 years ago. We can't do that anymore. Whew, what safety issue. All right, so let's skim along here. But as I mentioned before, this whole thing, the environment overlays the whole thing, right? The food system is incredibly complex, and it does tie in with all of us, and it ties in with the environment each and every day, even if you don't see it. It could be just even the ethanol in your car, which comes from corn as an agricultural product. But Walt was talking about this stuff over 70 years ago. Really, conservation was something we need to worry about, but yes, it is. And it's not just for a few of us that are perceived to be environmentalists. And trust me, I am not an environmentalist. I look at the world through a lens of food and making sure that everybody can have food and great food and the systems that go with that. So there's certainly my colleagues that fit that bill a whole lot better than I do, because they know more than I do. Beep. But back in the end of 2020, the Disney company came out with a series of environmental goals. And my job as a chef on that environmental team was to figure out how that all related to the food systems. And food systems do relate to everything that we talk about. So the 5 pillars that we came up with were zero net emissions for our directly owned operations, working on minimizing or reducing our Scope 3 emissions, looking at localized watershed projects and sustainable seafood at each of our parks around the world, reducing our plastic overall, increasing the amount of recycled plastic we use, and really working to minimize those single-use plastics. You all know that every piece of plastic that's ever been produced in the history of mankind still exists on the earth somewhere today. So figuring out what that looks like in 20 years from now is a little frightening to me. Building sustainably, all the new projects, trying to figure out how do we build those in with water preservation projects, net zero emissions, and trying to get them up and running. And then waste. Waste is nothing but waste. You're wasting money, you're wasting labor hours, and I'll repeat this a couple times. With food waste being my particular, what sticks in my craw every day, because the old chefs that taught me, they would come and turn the trash can over in the kitchen, and you would go through there and discuss what was there and what shouldn't be there. Try that today. Whew. You'd get fired. But Disney did came out, and we were recognized as a 2030 EPA food waste champion with the goal of reducing our food waste by over 50% by 2030. So I would challenge that we are well into that goal. And one of the ways to do that is think about reduce, reuse, and recycle. You've probably heard this before. Reduce at the source. That's the best place to attack this, right? We talk about all these problems we have. Go back to the root of the problem and start there. Don't start over here 14 issues down the line, or you'll be repeating. You put it on auto send on your email. Just call me again next year because we're talking about the same thing. But it begins in the kitchen. It begins with writing recipes. Chefs writing recipes accurately. Pastry chefs do a great job because they do grams versus English measurement. They know what goes in, they know what comes out exactly. Chefs, they don't account. They take, I tasted this for 10 and the chef bought off on the menu item. Now I got to multiply it by 100. It'll be the same. Yeah, no, not so much. Clear production standards in your operations. The chef should know what to prepare and watch what is being prepared and what goes in the bin at the end because they overproduce. Portion sizes. I know you all are tied into portion sizes. How much can a person really eat in a day? How do we measure the value of food? Is it by the quality of the food, the preparation, what goes into that, how it's raised, or is it by just the sheer volume of food that goes on a plate? I would say that in the Western diet, or certainly here in America, it is the latter. And buffets are a big part of that. Probably one of the single biggest wastes of money that I can think of, because the amount of food that goes into the bins is horrific. Yeah, it's hard to justify. I could go off for an hour about that one. But really think about that. Do we need to have food on 12-inch plates? Food is an optical illusion, right? You pay a lot of money in a fine dining restaurant for pretty small portions, right? What's the difference? Do I need to get extra value out of my burger by put 4 different proteins on top so I can get $49.99 for my burger when the guest can't eat it and it goes in the trash? So I look at this as just waste in manpower, waste in Scope 3 emissions. So I don't think any of you like having your work thrown away. And that's exactly what I see every time I look in a trash can. I see food products in there, like the foot-long hot dog. That's another story. But let's talk about changing human behavior. That is enormously difficult. But that's something you can work on in your practices, one person at a time. Just get those acolytes out there and go from there. Reusing products. I always say in banquets, if I could keep turning product over and getting out there on the buffet of some kind the next day, that was my cash money and get my food waste down. But if you have the opportunity to go to Disney Springs, if you're extending a day, or you just like ice cream, go to a place called Salt and Straw over there. And I know they have some places on the West Coast, Google them. But they have some upcycled products in their ice creams. They're using a whole cacao pod to make a chocolate ice cream, and they're using some bread products in there as well for a different flavor that originated out in Portland. So that'll be a trip for later this week. I like ice cream. And then recycle, get stuff to the food banks. Our friends, there's still tremendous need in our food banks. And I know a couple of chefs have talked about this before, but please get that out there. And again, I can't repeat enough, food waste is nothing but wasting money, time, and effort. And we see it in our restaurants and our organizations. If you're a protein, think about the animal back in the pike there and sacrifice his life just to be thrown in the trash. That, my friends, is a crime. Explore smart scales, right? There's companies like Lean Path, Winnow, Food, or a couple others, where the chefs you can weigh your food waste. You can see what's going in the bins. There's AI to identify it. They can some that also take a picture of what's going in there. So like in the old days, I burned the prime rib. I could make it go to the trash can and make it go away. Not so much anymore. It goes in the trash can, shows up as 15 pounds of prime rib. the chef gets an alert, oh, we're going to go see Gary Jones because we got an issue, and find out why this is taking place. Some places are too small to actually have food waste pickup programs, like Vero Beach, or you're on a cruise line in the middle of the Caribbean. So biodigesters work, right? So water and some enzymes, and the food turns the waste turns into gray water, wastewater, which then can be processed through regular water treatment plants. And think on a cruise line, right? Food waste is weight, which equates to fuel usage, scope 3, scope 1, 2 emissions, and all this other stuff, plus the storage space for all of that stuff. So we, at Walt Disney World, they use an industrial composter. So it goes up to Oklahoma, Florida, spell that 3 times fast, where it's composted in long windrows, 165 plus degrees. The thing to watch out for there is, of course, the contamination, because servers still throw silverware and straws in the trash, and that does not compost in any way, shape, or form. But we also have a glass pulverizer. We're testing at Fort Wilderness, which takes all the glass. But it's amazing how much glass campers can generate for a variety of reasons, I suppose. But it turns it into a variety of different granular sizes. So we use it as sand, and it goes out and replenishes the trails as well. So if you watch Magic of Disney's Animal Kingdom on Disney Plus, I think it's episode 5, and you can see that item, and my friend Jared, who helped drive that project. Bagless trash and recycling, do you really need to have bags in there? Couldn't you just wash out the bins? Yeah, there's sanitation, a lot of other issues there as well, but that plastic bag will be there long past you're gone. Plastic-free packaging, think about that. Get recycled plastics and clothing. I know we're getting some aprons and some of our costumes, uniforms in your language, I suppose, that have recycled plastic in them. So people have been worried about this wasting for a long time, because that sign on the left was printed way before I was born, way before, and you can tell that was a while ago. The thing on the side there, the food waste bin, that's not a Disney food waste bin, but I will tell you, I've seen all of those products in our food waste bins. That food waste bin, you just wasted all the work of people trying to do the right thing, because that is going straight to landfill. That cannot be composted. It's just a total waste of time and effort. Plus, there's cash money in there. There are mushrooms and some other things in there. And there's strawberries, become strawberry vinaigrette or strawberry sauce for your desserts. That's free money, one way or another. This is not an old story about food waste. A friend sent me this from her trip to Malaysia at a buffet. Imagine this, only take what you can eat. Rocket science. And then they point out, hey, we're wasting 1/3 of the food that's produced in the world today. And think about the space and all the effort that takes that could be dedicated to other things. So 2018 in Malaysia, she's got a good chuckle out of that, sending that to me. Water is also important in a lot of ways. So think about the terrestrial beings. We all need water. Mammals, bacteria need water. Never mind the incredible bio and ecosystems that live underneath the water, right? So you can go over to Cocoa Beach and see the incredible ocean. Imagine what is underneath there. Millions and millions and millions of live creatures and plants that have been there since far before we came out of the primordial soup, if that's what you want to, your belief pattern. So why aren't we worrying about water, right? 70% of the world is water. The human body is about 60% water. If 40% of the world is having water challenges, why in God's name are we not worrying about water? So think about water in your organization, the leaky dish machine, the leaky sink, the leaky toilet, all of that stuff. Your sprinkler systems, for those that live in Florida, what does that look like at home? We need to be saving the water, because we will depend on it. And if you've read, what's going on out west, becomes a much more critical issue. You have farmers in the Midwest that are worrying about drawing millimeters for these big cattle farms of water from the aquifers. That's a really small amount of water, and they're worried about that genuinely. We could debate cattle production in that's another program. The other part of water is sustainable seafood. So again, going back to the ecosystems that are under there, there are no useless animals or creatures on this earth. They are all put here for a reason, and they all interact with one another at one time or another. We, as chefs and food and beverage professionals, have the ability and the capability to source 100% sustainable seafood. Walt Disney World, or the Walt Disney Parks, domestic and cruise line, we made a goal, and we achieved that goal at the end of 22, 100% sustainable seafood. Actually, the number was 99.99. I forget the last 4 numbers that I calculated out there, but due to some purchasing challenges. But anyways, 100% sustainable seafood. That's hard choices. There are some species you're not going to be able to use. And that's probably the right thing, because when you think about the oceans, we can debate wind farms and we can debate oil spills and plastics or whatever. The destroyer of the ecosystem is actually the fishing system, with drags and taking too many things out of there. And once that balance is off, now you're back juggling all this stuff that makes it more difficult. But by supporting sustainable seafood, you're also supporting industry, and you're supporting the seafood or the ecosystems, as well as the communities that depend on that, because all of these things have social and economic impacts. I can tell you about lobsters too, but again, that's a third program we can talk about later. But learn the metrics of the program, right? So we partnered with this Monterey Bay Aquarium Seafood Watch program. They provide the scientific base, an unbiased scientific base. People may agree or disagree with them, but they don't take money to do their analysis. And then Sustainable Fisheries Partnership does the metrics program for us. So what's the name of the fish? The common name that you see in a grocery store, but what's the scientific name, the Latin name? Now, there's a lot of varieties of snapper. Some are sustainable, some are not. Where is it caught? How is it caught? What's the fishing gear that's caught with? Fish has seasons. The mahi-mahi you get in Costa Rica is the same as the mahi-mahi off of Peru. It's just a different time of year. It's the same population, perhaps a different fishery management organization, which is also a challenge, but all of those things need to be considered. And then minimizing the bycatch. Well, you know, we caught 100,000 pounds of fish in this trawl, and there are only 20 turtles in there. Well, there's a lot less turtles than there are X amount of fish. How many times can you do that over and over again? And actually, you can Google Tour de Turtles, which starts over in Vero Beach, I think in like another week or so. So you can start tracking the turtles that nest over there on the coast. Or just go to Disney's Vero Beach Resort and visit. That's my commercial for today. Single-use plastics. The expanded polystyrene cup on the left, some of us remember those, you know, the old coffee cups. You still see them in to-go containers. Please, just get rid of those stupid things. They will be here far past our expiration date. The next creatures that replace us will still have those things. Straws and lids, I get it if in your car, but how many adults really need a straw and a lid? Starbucks has figured this out in a lot of cases. You can figure it out. You're a little kid, I get it. And they have, bioplastic straws now. Well, they theoretically decompose in water in 80 days. Well, that's great, unless you're the turtle that gets it in your craw, you know, on day 70. Then it kind of stinks for you. So again, rethink the straws in the lids and all those single-use plastics, the little cocktail stirrers, all this stuff, that all can go away. And in food service, think about, do I need, it's not plastic, but parchment paper. I could use Silpats. Do I need to use saran wrap? No, you can buy plastic sheet pan covers of all different sizes that you can use over and over again, because that saran wrap, again, will still be there. Increase your water stations. Get rid of the contour bottles. I know I have a contour bottle down here that breaks my heart, but I have it down there because I forgot my bottle this morning. But Coke is pioneering reverse vending machines. So you can put your cans and your bottles back in there, crushes them, makes a donation to an environmental organization, and it goes back to where it's supposed to go. Trash cans. If you're going to recycle, you know, put recycling cans out there. Give people enough space to do that. Otherwise, human behavior, man, it's going in the trash bin. And again, wasted time, wasted effort. And look closely at that waste stream and take care of my turtle friends. But if you think about a Disney message, right? So we rebranded our CSR program to Planet Possible. So you think about a world of belonging, a world of balance, and a world of hope. A world of belonging, again, bring everything back to food systems, right? A world of belonging is that little kid with a food allergy, or the marathoner that wants a vegan diet. He should belong without having to go to a big fire drill just to find some sort of sustainable nutrition during their visit to my hospitality organization. A world in balance is being able to get that food because the ecosystems all match each other and they're taking care of each other. And the people who prepare that food are paying attention to what they're serving and trying to create or influence policies that guide our leaders back to a reasonable course. And the world of hope is, if I have all of those things, then it does provide hope for the younger generations that come and follow all of us together. So this all makes sense, just a cascade of effects. And again, I look at that through the world of food, which brings us all together. So you all talked about teaching a little bit, and I've got a couple slides to go and we'll be done here. But teach kids about food. Teach the little kids about food, not just the college kids. That's great, but teach the college kids. It's history, science, math, all this other stuff, and it's all rolled into this wonderful edible little bundle, right? So I like the process of chemistry, and Fran Adria taught us about chemistry in physics in terms of cooking. So I like learning about chemistry. I hated the algebraic equations that would go out with calculating how many moles of this thing were in a molecule. You can teach me the rest of it, like lose the algebra, please. And I've taken it 3 times in my lifetime. Ugh, hate it. But anyways, and I passed my introductory sommelier exam, not because I have incredible taste buds, but because I like history and I like maps, and it made it all come together. The fact that I was drinking the wine, okay, it made perfect sense to me. This little girl is learning how to flip a pizza crust, and she's got her little fingers all balled up so she doesn't rip the dough when it comes back on down. So she'll remember that, hopefully for a long time. I don't know if she'll make pizza at home again in her lifetime, but at least she'll know. She'll be able to debate the pizza guy at the counter. And then what's your vision for the future, right? So again, Walt was pretty forward thinking in what it is. And you guys shape this future of tomorrow. And it is through what you do at work, right? So it's taking people that have entered the healthcare system, but I think for a lot of you, more importantly, is keeping the millions of people out of the healthcare system, keeping us healthy on the front side and on the back side, and minimizing, what's the middle. I know that generates income for all of us, but there's plenty of that to go around, I think. So just don't duck that responsibility and share it with others. So thanks to Walt Disney World for 37 years of little tidbits of information and some useless knowledge along the way, and some good dining experiences. And really thank you for all you do every single day. And thanks for being here on Sunday morning.